Welcome to the Temple of the Floating Mist, where your restless mind finally discovers the sanctuary it has been quietly searching for tonight. Let yourself sink into the velvet embrace of this sacred space, where the timeless currents of Buddhist philosophy are not studied in books, but felt in the cooling air and the gentle silence. Allow this atmosphere to carry you beyond stress, beyond the need to react, into the deepest tranquility you have ever known. Close your eyes now, release the heavy weight of your day, and allow these ancient whispers to wash over you like a healing rain, cleansing every corner of your spirit. Feel your breathing slow down, growing deeper and softer as the demanding noise of the modern world begins to fade into a comfortable hum. With each gentle breath, you are drifting backward through the layers of time, leaving behind the rush and urgency of daily life. The familiar sounds of traffic and technology dissolve completely into a thick, protective silence, replaced by something far more ancient and peaceful. Let yourself be carried on this current of tranquility to a place where spiritual awakening happens as naturally as a flower opening to the moon. You find yourself walking along a weathered path high in the misty peaks of an ancient mountain range. Your feet tread softly on moss-covered stones. The air is cool and crisp, carrying the scent of damp earth and the faint, sweet fragrance of wild jasmine. Before you, emerging from a sea of white clouds, rises a wooden bridge leading to the temple gates. You can hear the gentle chime of a brass wind bell somewhere in the distance, ring, 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 marking the passage of time in perfect rhythm with your slowing heartbeat. You have arrived home. As you approach the monastery gates, you notice the carefully tended gardens that surround the buildings, a living tapestry of green moss and grey stone. Here, moss-covered boulders sit in perfect harmony with raked gravel patterns that ripple outward like frozen water, and a small, crystalline stream winds its way between ancient, twisted pine trees. The morning sun filters through the canopy above, creating dancing patches of light that move across the path like gentle spirits welcoming you home. You can almost feel the centuries of peace that have settled into this place, each stone and tree holding the silent wisdom of countless monks who have walked these same paths in mindfulness, meditation, their footsteps, leaving no trace but peace. In the center of this serenity, your attention is drawn to a figure who seems to grow directly out of the stillness. This is Master Kenji, the temple's guardian of the ancient bonsai collection. He kneels beside a weathered wooden table, his movements so slow and deliberate that he appears to be moving underwater. He is tending to a magnificent juniper tree, its trunk twisted by centuries of wind, its needles vibrant against the dark wood. You can hear the gentle sound of his pruning shears snip, 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 marking the passage of time in perfect rhythm with your heartbeat. With each precise cut, he is not just shaping a tree, he is engaging in a silent dialogue with nature, a profound form of Zen meditation that requires absolute presence. Suddenly, the tranquil atmosphere is shattered by angry shouting from within the outer courtyard. You hurry through the wooden gates and see a scene that stops you in your tracks, your heart quickening in sympathy with the disruption. A man of imposing stature stands in the center of the peaceful space, his expensive silk robes disheveled, his face flushed a deep, violent crimson with fury. This is not a merchant, but a high-ranking general, a man used to commanding legions, now reduced to shouting at the wind. His voice echoes off the monastery walls like thunder disturbing a serene mountain lake, and you can feel the tension radiating from his clenched fists and rigid posture as if the air itself has tightened around him. Master Kenji, the general bellows, his words cutting through the morning air like sharp, rusted blades. I know you have the ear of the imperial court. You must help me regain my command, or I will burn this mountain to the ground with my rage. You learn from his desperate, jagged words that he has been stripped of his title, his army, and his dignity overnight by a jealous rival in the capital. His entire identity, built over 40 years of blood and service, has collapsed in a single night. The other monks scatter like startled birds, their peaceful morning routine shattered by this emotional storm, disappearing behind paper screens and wooden pillars. But your attention is magnetically drawn back to the figure near the bonsai table, who seems completely untouched by the chaos. Master Kenji remains kneeling, his weathered hands guiding the small shears through the dense foliage of the juniper tree. Each movement creates a tiny separation of green from brown, and you can see how his movements mirror his breathing deep, steady, completely unaffected by the fury swirling around him like a hurricane. The contrast is so striking that you find yourself holding your own breath, watching this living demonstration of inner peace in the face of aggressive chaos. You move closer, drawn by the master's extraordinary calm, feeling safe in his orbit despite the general's volume. The morning sun casts dancing shadows across the arranged stones, and in this moment, you feel time itself slowing to match Kenji's unhurried pace. The shears make soft, rhythmic sounds against the wood, creating a melody of order that seems to defy the discord of the general's shouting. Each cut appears deliberate yet effortless, like watching a master calligrapher create poetry with simple strokes of ink. The general's voice grows even louder, more desperate, cracking under the weight of his own suffering. "Did you hear me, old man? I am ruined. My family is disgraced. Everything I fought for is gone." His words are designed to provoke, to force someone to share in his pain and urgency, to make the world vibrate with his indignation. You watch the master's face, expecting some flicker of reaction, some sign that this emotional assault is penetrating his serenity. But Kenji's expression remains as peaceful as a mountain lake at dawn, undisturbed by the storm raging around its shores. He does not ignore the general, but neither does he allow the general's anger to become his own. He simply continues his work, treating the bonsai with the same reverence he would offer a king or a beggar or a storm. You stand there, suspended between two worlds, the red-hot world of the general's reactive pain and the cool blue world of Master Kenji's responsive presence. It is a moment of perfect tension, a tableau of the human condition, and you realize that you are witnessing something rare, a spirit that has become so vast it can no longer be shaken by the small, violent tremors of worldly loss. Then something shocking happens, a violation of the sacred space that makes your stomach turn. The general, blinded by his desperate need to be acknowledged, steps directly into the manicured rock garden. His heavy, mud-caked military boots crush the carefully raked gravel, obliterating the swirling patterns that represented the cosmic flow of water patterns that Master Kenji had likely spent hours perfecting in the pre-dawn light. You wince instinctively as you see this artwork destroyed in seconds, the crunch of stone under leather sounding violent and intrusive in the mountain silence. "Look at me when I'm speaking to you," the general demands, his voice cracking with raw emotion. In a blind, reactive rage, he reaches out with a trembling hand and grabs a sprawling, elegant branch of the ancient juniper tree, the very limb Master Kenji had been tending with such tender reverence. With a sharp, sickening twist, he snaps it. Crack. The sound echoes off the canyon walls like a gunshot. The branch, which had taken 200 years to grow into that perfect, wind-swept shape, hangs limply in his hand for a split second before he throws it aside. It clatters against the stone pathway, its vibrant green needles scattering like fallen soldiers, severed forever from their source of life. For a moment, the entire world seems to freeze in shock. The only sounds remaining are the distant, indifferent call of a mountain bird and the whisper of wind through the bamboo leaves, mourning the loss of something irreplaceable. You watch in amazement and horror, your own heart racing, expecting an explosion. You expect Master Kenji to leap up, to shout, to summon the other monks, to defend this living treasure he has guarded for decades. This tree was not merely a plant, it was a chronicle of time, a testament to patience, a living sculpture shaped by generations of masters. To see it maimed so carelessly feels like a physical blow, but Master Kenji simply smiles. It is not a smile of mockery, nor is it condescending or dismissive. It is the gentle, open expression of someone watching a child stumble while learning to walk, a smile filled with infinite patience and an understanding that stretches far beyond the immediate loss. Without a single word of condemnation, he sets down his shears. He moves slowly, his robes rustling softly like dry leaves, and kneels down on the ruined gravel. With his bare hands, he begins smoothing the disturbed stones. His movements are so graceful, so utterly peaceful, that you see the general step back involuntarily, as if he has touched something sacred and realizes he is unworthy. There is something almost magical happening here, and you can feel it in the air around you. A shifting of atmospheric pressure, like the approach of a gentle rain after a long, parched drought. It is a demonstration of power, but not the kind the general understands. You realize, with a sudden jolt of clarity, that you are witnessing the true nature of spiritual awakening in action. It is not a state of trance or withdrawal from the world, but a capacity to face destruction and aggression with a heart that remains open, fluid, and unbroken. Master Kenji looks up, his hand resting on the smoothed earth. He speaks for the first time, his voice as calm as still water in a deep well, carrying no trace of the violence that just occurred. When we react to life's storms with more storm, General, we only create greater chaos, he says, his tone devoid of any accusation. Your anger, though understandable, cannot restore your command. Your violence, though passionate, cannot heal this tree or bring back your rank. But your peace of mind, that is something no emperor can take, no rival can steal, and no external circumstance can touch. Unless you give it away through reaction. You watch the general's entire demeanor begin to shift, the tension leaking out of his frame. Something in Master Kenji's presence is working its magic, a transmission of state that happens not through arguments, but through pure being. The red flush on the general's face begins to recede, replaced by a pale, confused vulnerability. The general looks from the old master to the broken branch on the path, and for the first time, he seems to truly see the wreckage he has caused, not just to the garden, but to his own dignity. But, the general stammers, his voice dropping from a shout to a confused murmur. I destroyed your work. I ruined the tree. Why aren't you fighting me? I am attacking everything you value. The contrast is so striking that you find yourself holding your own breath, watching this living demonstration of inner peace. It feels as though the master has stopped time itself, creating a bubble of serenity that the general's fury simply cannot penetrate. The merchant's shoulders know. The general's shoulders start to relax, the rigid armor of his fury melting under the warmth of the master's gaze. When he speaks again, his voice is quieter, stripped of its command, leaving only the raw vibration of a man who has lost his way. But master, he asks, his eyes searching Kenji's face for a sanity he cannot find in himself. How can I not react? Everything I am is tied to what I have lost. My identity, my family's security, my future, it is all gone. To not react feels like dying. You find yourself leaning forward, drawn irresistibly into this moment of transformation. You are no longer just an observer. You are a student sitting at the feet of wisdom. Master Kenji nods with deep understanding, his eyes reflecting the compassion of someone who has walked through his own fires of loss and emerged transformed. Let me share something with you, he says, settling into a comfortable sitting position on the garden's edge, holding the severed branch gently in his hands, as if it were a wounded bird. You position yourself where you can hear every word, sensing that something profound is about to unfold, a teaching that goes to the very root of human suffering. Look at this branch, Kenji says, softly, turning the broken end toward the general. In the world of reaction, this is tragedy. It is broken. It is dead. The natural reaction is to mourn it, or to rage at the one who broke it, or to throw it onto the fire pile. That is what the mind does when it is trapped in the past. It sees only what has ended. He pauses, and you can smell the sharp, resinous scent of the fresh pine sap bleeding from the wound, the scent of a tree crying silent tears. But in the world of response, Kenji continues, his voice brightening with a quiet intensity, this break is not an end. It is an opening. He reaches into his robe and pulls out a small roll of grafting tape and a sharp knife. I will not throw this branch away. I will find a strong, wild rootstock in the forest, a tree that has deep roots but no beautiful foliage. I will make a cut in that wild tree, and I will join this broken branch to it. The general watches, mesmerized, as Kenji mimes the action of binding the two distinct woods together. The wound of the branch meets the wound of the tree, Kenji explains, his hands moving in the air like a weaver. And because the branch has been broken, because it has been separated from its old life, it is now desperate to connect. It will drink from the new roots. It will grow faster, stronger, and more resilient than before. This is the art of grafting. It is the art of using the catastrophe to create a new form of life. You feel the weight of this revelation settling in your own heart. The wisdom, the understanding, the genuine insights these lived, not in the pristine, unbroken tree, but in the master's capacity to work with the break. So you accept the destruction? The general asks, his voice barely above a whisper, the fight completely gone from him. I chose to respond rather than react. Kenji clarifies gently, placing the branch carefully on a stone. Reaction comes from the wounded part of us that believes we are only what we possess, our rank, our medals, our unbroken branches. It is a mechanical replay of the past. When you shouted at me, you were not responding to this morning. You were reliving every fear you have ever felt about being powerless. Reaction is a ghost from yesterday, haunting the present moment. He looks directly at the general, and then, for a brief moment, his eyes seem to meet yours across the distance of time and space. But response comes from the deeper part that knows who we truly are, the part that cannot be touched by any external circumstance. Response is alive. It is creative. It looks at the wreckage and asks, what can be built from this? When I stopped reacting to the broken branch as a loss and began responding to it as a potential graft, the anger vanished. There is no room for anger when you are busy creating new life. The general wipes his eyes with the back of his rough hand, a gesture so childlike it makes your heart ache. But practically speaking, Master, I still need to provide for my family. I still need to restore my name. How does grafting help with those real problems? This isn't gardening. This is my life. You see Kenji's face light up with understanding, the way a lantern illuminates a dark room. This is the beautiful paradox, he says, beginning to trace new patterns in the sand with his finger, repairing the damage the general's boots had made, one line at a time. When we stop wasting our energy on reaction, on anger, blame, despair, and the endless loop of why me, we have so much more energy available for effective action. He pauses to let this sink in. Reaction is a leak in your spirit. It drains you. Many people come to me seeking meditation for anxiety, thinking they need to escape their problems, but I tell them, you do not need to escape. You need to stop leaking your power into reactions that change nothing. Once you stop fighting the reality of the broken branch, you can focus all your intelligence on finding the new root. You watch the master's hands as he creates spiral patterns in the sand, each curve seeming to represent the endless cycles of loss and renewal that define human existence. The general stands there, silent, his chest rising and falling, but the rhythm is different now. It is no longer the jagged rhythm of panic, but the slower, heavier rhythm of a man waking up from a long, exhausting nightmare. He is beginning to see that his rage was not strength, but a desperate attempt to hold onto a branch that had already snapped. That night, Kenji continues, his voice dropping to a confidential whisper, when I learned to graft, I realized that the break was necessary. Without the cut, the union with the stronger roots could never happen. Perhaps, General, losing your command is the cut you needed to find a deeper root for your life. The general looks down at his hands that have held swords and signed orders, now empty. But in that emptiness, for the first time, he sees not poverty, but possibility. The general sits down on a large, flat stone without realizing it, his legs suddenly too heavy to hold him upright. You notice how the very quality of attention in the courtyard has shifted. Even the birds seem to be listening more quietly around you. The morning continues its gentle progression, leaves rustling their timeless whispers, the sun painting everything in golden light that seems to bless this moment of sharing. What did you do? The general asks, his anger now completely replaced by genuine curiosity, the way a lost traveler asks for directions. Did you always possess this unshakable mind? Master Kenji laughs softly, a sound like dry leaves dancing on stone. Oh, no. I was not born a master of peace. I was born a man of paper and ink. He settles deeper into his posture, his eyes losing focus on the present garden as he drifts back into the currents of memory. Let me tell you a story, he says, and his voice takes on the rhythmic, soothing cadence of one of those ancient Zen stories designed to bypass the intellect and speak directly to the heart. Many years ago, long before I came to this mountain, I was the imperial archivist in the capital. I did not tend trees. I tended history. I spent decades collecting, transcribing, and preserving the rarest manuscripts of the empire. My library was my entire world. I believed that I was the library. My reputation, my worth, my very soul was inked onto those thousands of rice paper scrolls. You can almost see the scene he is describing, the young, proud scholar surrounded by walls of knowledge, feeling safe within his fortress of words. Then came the year of the black rain, Kenji continues, his voice dropping an octave, heavy with the memory of water. The great river burst its banks in the middle of the night. It did not ask for permission. It did not care about history. A wall of water and mud crashed through the lower city. He pauses, and you feel the cool dampness of the story settling against your skin. I rushed to the archives, wading through waist-deep water, screaming at the heavens. But I was too late. I watched as my life's work turned into pulp. Thousands of manuscripts, years of calligraphy, centuries of wisdom. The only copies in existence dissolved before my eyes. The ink ran like black tears into the muddy torrent. In a single night, I was reduced to nothing. The general shudders, perhaps imagining his own recent fall from grace. It must have destroyed you, he whispers. I sat in the mud for 3 days, Kenji replies with complete honesty. I did not meditate. I did not practice acceptance. I raged. I cursed the river. I cursed the gods. I tried to scoop up the dissolving pulp with my bare hands, trying to hold on to a form that was already gone. I was consumed by reaction, bitter, angry, devastated. I felt exactly as you feel now. You listen intently, the silence in the garden deepening. This is not a story of instant holiness, but of human struggle. But on the 4th morning, Kenji says, a small smile touching the corners of his eyes, as I sat shivering among the ruins of my identity, the sun came up. The floodwaters had receded, leaving behind a thick layer of smooth, dark silt covering the floor of the library. He gestures with his hand, painting the scene in the air. In that moment of despair, the core truth of Buddhist philosophy, impermanence, was no longer a concept in a book, but a cold reality soaking into my skin. But then, I looked closer at the mud. The water, as it receded, had carved incredibly intricate patterns into the silt, swirls, canyons, delicate fans of sand that looked like bird wings. It was the most beautiful calligraphy I had ever seen, and it had been written by the very force that destroyed my library. The master pauses, and you feel the weight of this revelation settling in your own heart. I realized then, he whispers, that the water had not destroyed the essence of beauty. It had only changed its form. The manuscripts were just containers. The wisdom was not in the paper. It was in the flow of life itself. By choosing to react with devastation, I was throwing away the very thing that made those writings valuable in the first place, the ability to see the truth. The mud taught me that our deepest treasures are not in what we can lose, but in what remains when everything else is washed away. Our capacity for peace, for wisdom, for choosing our response to whatever life brings. You watch as the general's eyes fill with tears, not of anger now, but of recognition. So, the library. It was just wrapping paper? Just wrapping paper, Kenji agrees. And when the wrapping paper was torn away, I found the real gift inside. I found that I could still see beauty, I could still learn, I could still serve. That night, I walked out of the ruined city with nothing in my hands, but I woke up the next morning with everything in my heart. Because I had remembered who I really was, he adds, looking directly at the general. The manuscripts were gone, but the archivist, the witnessing presence, was untouched. The flood could take my books, but it could not drown my awareness. The general takes a deep, shuddering breath, releasing years of tension. I thought I was the general, he says, his voice cracking, just as you thought you were the archivist. And now, Kenji says, reaching out to touch the general's arm lightly, the flood has come for you. The wrapping paper of your rank has been washed away. But look at what is left underneath. The general stands up slowly, and you can see that something fundamental has shifted in his bearing. It is as if a heavy, invisible weight has been lifted from his shoulders. He is no longer hunched with the jagged energy of anger, nor is he collapsed in despair. Instead, he stands straightened with a quiet, newfound dignity. A dignity that comes not from the medals on his chest, but from the sudden, spacious realization within his chest. I think I understand, he says, looking down at the patterns Master Kenji has restored in the gravel. His voice is steady, grounded in the earth beneath his feet. My army is gone, my title is gone, but my ability to lead, my capacity to command my own spirit, my discipline, that is still here. The jealous ministers couldn't steal that. The emperor couldn't confiscate my inner strength. Master Kenji nods with deep satisfaction, looking like a gardener watching a seed finally sprout after a long, dark winter. Now, he says softly, you are beginning to taste the freedom that comes from not reacting. When we stop identifying ourselves with what can be taken away, our rank, our possessions, our reputation, we discover what can never be taken away. And from that place of unshakable peace, we can respond to any situation, even disgrace, with wisdom and effectiveness. You have been wearing your rank like a suit of heavy iron armor for 40 years, Kenji continues, gesturing to the general's disheveled silk robes. You wore it so constantly that you began to believe the metal was your own skin. You thought that without the iron, you would cease to exist. But the armor was just a shell. It was rigid, it was heavy. It kept you safe, perhaps, but it also separated you from the world. The master pauses, allowing the image to settle. You can imagine the weight of that metaphorical armor, the constant need to defend, to posture, to prove. When your command was taken, Kenji says, his voice gentle as a falling leaf, it felt like being flayed alive because you had forgotten where the armor ended and the man began. But in truth, you were just being undressed. The iron has been stripped away. You feel naked. Yes, you feel vulnerable. But notice, you are also light. You are unburdened. For the first time in decades, you can move freely. You watch as the general takes a deep breath, perhaps the first full, unrestricted breath he has taken since his youth. The lines of tension around his eyes smooth out. The frantic energy that had vibrated in the air around him dissolves, replaced by a calm that feels as solid as the mountain itself. "Thank you," the general says, bowing deeply to the master, a bow of genuine respect, far deeper than court protocol requires. His anger has been completely transformed into gratitude, alchemized by the simple truth of the master's presence. "I came here demanding that you use your influence to fix my external situation. I wanted you to repair my armor. But you have done something far more valuable. You have helped me remember who I am underneath it. I suspect," Kenji says with a knowing smile, "that tonight, for the first time in months, you will find the deep sleep that has evaded you. Not the sleep of exhaustion, but the rest of a man who has nothing to defend." As the general prepares to leave, Master Kenji hands him a small, smooth pine cone from the garden floor. "Take this as a reminder," he says. "The pine tree does not need a title to be majestic. It simply is. Whenever you feel the urge to react, to grasp for your old armor, hold this. Remember that your true power lies not in your rank, but in your root." You sit quietly as the general walks away, his step lighter than when he arrived, despite having lost everything the world considers valuable. The courtyard returns to its natural rhythm, birds resuming their songs, the wind bell chiming its eternal ring, 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 the morning sun climbing higher in the sky. But something has fundamentally changed in the quality of peace here. You have witnessed a miracle, not the magical kind where laws of physics are broken, but the profound human kind where a heart chooses wisdom over reaction, response over reflex. Master Kenji picks up his shears again and returns to the bonsai. He does not look triumphant or proud. He simply resumes his dialogue with the tree. No attachment to the previous drama, no resentment about the broken branch. Each movement is made with complete presence, as if this moment, this tiny cut, is the most important thing in the universe. Watching him, you begin to understand that this is what mastery looks like. Complete acceptance of what is, combined with joyful engagement with what is emerging. "You seem puzzled," Kenji says suddenly, looking up at you with eyes that seem to see right through to your soul. You realize you must have been staring, lost in contemplation. "I was wondering," you find yourself saying, your voice sounding small in the vast courtyard, "how you developed such incredible self-control. How do you not react, even when someone is destroying something you love?" The master chuckles softly, a sound like water flowing over smooth stones. "It is not about self-control," he says, setting down the shears and giving you his full attention. Self-control implies using force to suppress a reaction. It is a battle between one part of you and another. What I practice is more like self-standing. When you truly understand the nature of reaction, he adds, you naturally lose interest in it, like a child who outgrows a noisy toy. You do not suppress it. You simply see through it. You lean forward, eager to understand this deeper teaching. Around you, the monastery continues its peaceful existence. You see monks quietly going about their morning tasks, sweeping the wooden verandas or carrying water, while the garden returns to perfection under Master Kenji's patient care. The air is filled with the scent of pine resin and the subtle, sweet smoke of morning incense. "Let me tell you about the nature of reaction," Kenji continues, his voice taking on the quality of someone sharing a precious secret, a key that unlocks the heavy doors of the heart. Every reaction is actually an echo of an old sound. This statement hits you like a gentle lightning bolt, illuminating a landscape you didn't know existed. "What do you mean?" you ask, sensing that you are about to learn something that could change your entire approach to life. "Come," he says, standing up and brushing the pine needles from his robes. "To understand this, we must go to the edge." He leads you away from the manicured garden, down a winding path that skirts the edge of the mountain. You walk in companionable silence, the gravel crunching softly beneath your feet. Crunch, 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 a sound that anchors you in the present moment. The path leads to a small, wooden observation deck that hangs over a deep, mist-filled canyon. This is the Canyon of Whispers, a place where the mountain walls are so steep and close that they seem to hold the sky between them like a blue ribbon. Master Kenji walks to the railing and gestures for you to stand beside him. Below you, the white mist swirls like a living river, obscuring the bottom of the ravine. The silence here is profound, a heavy, listening silence that seems to be waiting for a voice. "Watch carefully," Kenji whispers. He cups his hands around his mouth, leans out over the abyss, and gives a single, sharp shout. Ho! You watch as the sound leaves him. For a moment, there is nothing but silence. But then, a second later, the sound returns from the opposite wall, slightly fainter. Ho! And then, from a rock face further down. Ho! And then, like a ghost fading into the mist. H-O. This is what happens when we react, Kenji explains, his hands resting gently on the weathered railing. The initial shout is the external event, the general losing his rank, or someone criticizing you, or a car cutting you off. That event happens once, and then it is gone. It is over. He pauses, letting the silence of the canyon return. But the echo, he continues. The echo continues. Most people mistake the echo for the voice. They think the echo is the event. When the general was shouting at me in the garden, do you think he was shouting at me? You think about it. It seemed like he was shouting at you. He was shouting at his father, who told him he was never good enough, Kenji says softly. He was shouting at the fear he felt when he was a young soldier. He was shouting at every moment of helplessness he has ever experienced. He was hearing the echoes of his past, bouncing off the walls of his memory, and he was reacting to those echoes as if they were happening right now. Suddenly, Master Kenji's words begin to make sense in a way that vibrates in your bones. So when I react, I'm not really responding to what's actually happening. Exactly. The master nods with satisfaction, his eyes crinkling with warmth. Reaction is always about the past. Response is always about the present. The general's reaction had very little to do with me or the broken branch, and everything to do with his accumulated history of feeling unsafe in the world. The present moment became a screen onto which he projected all his old pain. The profound simplicity of this insight settles into your awareness like a key finding its lock. You think about times when you have overreacted to relatively small things, a tone of voice, a forgotten chore, a minor delay. You realize now that you were hearing an echo, a sound from long ago returning to haunt the present. But Master, you ask, looking out at the swirling mist, if reactions are just old echoes, playing out, how do we stop them? Master Kenji's eyes twinkle with gentle mischief, the look of a teacher who knows the student is ready for the truth. We don't stop them. You cannot stop an echo once the sound is made. If you try to shout at the echo to be quiet, you only create more noise, more echoes. He picks up a small pebble and drops it into the canyon. You listen, but it is too deep to hear it hit the bottom. We don't stop the echo, he repeats. We recognize it. Once you truly see that your reaction is not about the present moment, that it is just a ghost of a sound returning from the canyon of your memory, it loses its grip on you. It is like waking up from a dream. The moment you realize you are dreaming, the monsters can no longer hurt you. In many ancient Buddhist stories, Kenji says, turning to face you, the mind is compared to this canyon. It is vast, empty, and capable of reflecting whatever sound is thrown into it. The practice is not to fill the canyon with noise, but to stand on the deck, as we are doing now, and simply listen. We listen to the anger. We listen to the fear. We recognize them as echoes. And because we know they are just echoes, we do not need to jump over the railing to chase them. We can remain here, on the solid ground of the present, safe and observant. You stand there for a long time, listening to the silence that has swallowed the shout. The mist shifts and swirls, revealing glimpses of the ancient rock, face rock, that has stood there for millions of years, witnessing countless shouts and countless echoes, remaining completely unmoved by all of them. You realize that you have been identifying with the noise your whole life, thinking that the temporary disturbances were the totality of who you are. But standing here, beside this master of silence, you begin to suspect that you are not the shout, and you are not the echo. You are the canyon. So, the practice is to remember our deeper nature, you ask, watching the mist swirl below like a slow-moving river of white silk. The practice is to rest in our deeper nature, Master Kenji corrects gently, his voice lowering to match the deepening silence of the canyon. There is a subtle but vital difference between remembering something with your mind, like remembering a grocery list, and resting in it with your being. Let me show you what I mean. He gestures to a pair of flat, weathered stones, positioned near the edge of the observation deck, polished smooth by generations of seekers who have sat in this exact spot to watch the theater of the mountains. Sit here for a moment, he suggests. Simply be aware of being aware. You settle into the suggested posture, feeling the cool, solid wood of the deck beneath you and the gentle upward draft of the mountain breeze on your face. At first, your mind wants to analyze this instruction, to figure out what being aware of being aware looks like, to turn it into a task to be achieved. But gradually, guided by the Master's silent presence, you begin to sense something underneath all your thoughts and feelings. Imagine your mind is this vast open sky above us, Kenji says softly, his words drifting into your consciousness like falling feathers. The sky is boundless. It has no edges. It is transparent. It is always there, whether it is day or night, sunny or stormy. You look up at the pale blue expanse, stretching infinitely above the canyon walls. Now, he continues, notice the clouds drifting through. Some are white and fluffy, like happy thoughts. Some are dark and heavy, like worried thoughts. Some are fast, some are slow. In Buddhist meditation, we do not try to stop the clouds. We do not try to grab the white ones or push away the dark ones. That would be exhausting, and it is impossible. You cannot fight a cloud. He pauses, allowing you to visualize this. You watch a real cloud drifting lazily across the peak opposite you, changing shape as it moves, dissolving at the edges. The mistake we make, Kenji whispers, is thinking we are the clouds. We attach ourselves to a dark thought and say, I am sad. We attach ourselves to a stormy thought and say, I am anxious. But tell me, can the sky be hurt by a storm? No, you whisper back. Your eyes close now, seeing the internal sky. The sky contains the storm, but it is not wet by the rain or burned by the lightning. Precisely. The word is a soft bell of confirmation. This spacious presence is what you truly are. It is what the general truly is, underneath his armor. It is what every person you have ever met truly is. Thoughts come and go. Emotions rise and fall like these mountain mists. Circumstances change constantly. But this aware presence, this sky-like nature, remains unchanged. When you rest here, reaction becomes impossible. Why? Because the sky does not react to the clouds. It simply allows them room to pass. You sit in this recognition for several minutes, feeling a peace deeper than anything you have ever experienced. It is not the fragile peace of having everything go your way, of having all the traffic lights turn green or everyone agree with you. It is the robust, ancient peace of knowing that who you really are cannot be touched by whatever way things go. From this place, you can imagine responding to any situation with clarity and compassion, free from the old, sticky patterns of reactivity that have caused so much suffering. Shift your attention now. Kenji guides you further, his voice a steady anchor. Notice the silence between my words. Notice the space between your thoughts. That space is not empty. It is full of life. It is full of you. You try to find the edges of this awareness, but you cannot. It stretches out in all directions, vast and luminous. You realize that you have been living on the surface of an ocean, tossed about by every wave, never knowing the vast, still depths that lie just beneath. This, Kenji says, is the observatory of the mind. From here, you can watch the general of your own ego shouting and stomping. You can watch the fear of the future trying to break branches. You can watch it all with compassion, without needing to jump into the drama. You are the witness. You are the safe harbor. A temple bell rings somewhere far below in the monastery complex gong, a deep, resonant sound that vibrates through the canyon. Hear the sound, Kenji asks. Notice how the sound arises in silence, lasts for a moment, and then dissolves back into silence. You are the silence that hears the sound. You are the silence that holds the sound. You open your eyes slowly to find Master Kenji watching you with deep satisfaction. The mist in the canyon has risen slightly, softening the sharp edges of the rocks, making the world look like a watercolor painting. Now you have tasted it, he says. You have tasted the difference between being a cloud and being the sky. This is the foundation of all wisdom, all compassion, all skillful action in the world. You do not need to create peace. You only need to remember that you are the space in which peace and noise happen. As you prepare to leave the canyon edge, Kenji offers one final teaching for this session. Remember, my friend, that every person you meet is fighting the same battle, the battle of mistaking themselves for the clouds. When you can remain rooted in your own sky nature, you become a refuge for others to remember theirs. This is how wisdom spreads, not through preaching, not through arguing, but through being the vast, open sky in a world full of storms. You walk deeper into the monastery grounds, carrying the profound teaching of the canyon in your heart like a warm coal. The morning sun climbs higher, burning off the last remnants of mist, promising a day full of opportunities to practice what you have learned. As you pass through a bamboo grove, the light filters through the swaying stalks in stripes of green and gold, a natural cathedral that invites reverence with every step. In a distant courtyard, sheltered by the sprawling branches of an ancient ginkgo tree, you hear the soft murmur of voices blended with the delicate aroma of steeping herbs. You follow the scent, earthy, sweet, and comforting, until you discover a circle of young novices sitting on woven mats. At the center of the circle sits an elderly nun with a face as creased and benevolent as a dried plum, her eyes sparkling with a deep, mischievous intelligence. This is Master Lin, known throughout the region for her mastery of the tea of emptiness and her teachings on the playful nature of the mind. She does not look like a stern disciplinarian. She looks like the grandmother who always has a sweet cake hidden in her sleeve. "Ah," she says, looking up as you approach, her voice sounding like wind chimes in a gentle breeze. "Master Kenji has sent us another skygazer. Welcome to our circle. We were just discussing the greatest enemy of mindfulness meditation, the mischievous visitor. She gestures for you to settle quietly at the edge of the circle. A young novice, a boy of no more than 16 with a furrowed brow, looks up at her with desperate seriousness. But Master Lin, he says, it is not just a visitor, it is a demon. When I try to sit in silence, my mind jumps everywhere. I think about lunch, I think about the itch on my nose. I remember a song I heard 3 years ago. I cannot stop it. How can I ever achieve enlightenment with such a chaotic mind?" Master Lin laughs, a sound so free and unburdened that it makes the leaves on the ginkgo tree seem to dance. "Oh, poor Jun," she coos. "You are trying to herd cats into a straight line. Let me tell you a story about a man who tried to do exactly that." She pours tea into small clay cups, the liquid amber and steaming. "Long ago, In the high peaks of these very mountains lived a hermit named Taro. Taro was very serious about his spiritual path. He wanted silence. He wanted purity. He wanted to be the greatest meditator in history. So, Taro found a cave so high up that even the eagles found it difficult to reach. "Here," he declared, "I will finally find peace. No villagers to bother me. No merchants shouting. Just me and the universe." You can picture this hermit, sitting in his pristine cave, chin raised, convinced that isolation equals holiness. For the first week, everything was perfect. Master Lin continues, her hands moving gracefully as she serves the tea. Taro sat like a stone statue. He felt very holy. But on the 8th day, a visitor arrived. A monkey? One of the novices guesses, grinning. A Japanese macaque. Master Lin nods. With a red face and eyes full of trouble. This monkey did not care about Taro's enlightenment. He only cared about Taro's bananas. At first, the monkey just sat at the entrance and watched. Taro tried to ignore him. He focused on his breath. In, out. But then the monkey began to scratch. Scritch, scratch, scritch. It was a loud, rhythmic scratching. Taro twitched. He tried to incorporate the sound into his meditation, but it was very annoying. Then, Master Lin whispers dramatically. Leaning in, the monkey became bold. He crept into the cave. He poked Taro's knee. He stole a stick of incense and ran around the cave screeching. He knocked over Taro's water bowl. Taro exploded. Master Lin claps her hands together, making everyone jump slightly. He forgot all about his peace. He jumped up, face red, screaming at the monkey. "Get out! You are ruining my practice. I am trying to become a Buddha, you stupid beast." He chased the monkey around the cave with a broom. The monkey thought this was a fantastic game. He bounced off the walls, threw mango peels at Taro, and screeched with delight. For 3 hours, the great hermit ran in circles, sweating, shouting, completely possessed by rage. The novices are giggling now, recognizing their own struggles in the absurd image. Finally, Master Lin says, slowing down, Taro collapsed in exhaustion. He sat on the floor, panting, surrounded by the mess. The monkey sat on a rock opposite him, panting too, mirroring Taro's posture perfectly. Taro looked at the monkey. The monkey looked at Taro. And in that moment of exhaustion, the veil lifted. Taro saw his own reflection in the monkey's eyes. He realized that the chaos wasn't coming from the animal. The animal was just being a monkey. The chaos was coming from Taro's resistance to the monkey. He realized, Master Lin says softly, that the monkey was not an enemy. The monkey was his own mind, restless, playful, hungry, wanting attention. For years, Taro had been trying to kill his monkey mind with silence, to beat it into submission. But you cannot beat a monkey into stillness. You only make it wilder. So what did he do? Asks the frustrated novice, Jun. He bowed to the monkey. Master Lin replies with a smile. He gave the monkey a banana, and he sat back down. When the monkey screeched, Taro smiled and thought, "Hello, mind. You are loud today." When the monkey threw a peel, Taro thought, "Ah, a distraction. Thank you." He stopped fighting. He created space for the monkey to be a monkey. And do you know what happened? The circle waits, in breathless anticipation. The monkey got bored. Master Lin shrugs. Monkeys like games. If you don't chase them, there is no game. Eventually, the monkey sat down next to Taro, curled up, and went to sleep. They sat there together, the hermit and the beast, watching the sunset in perfect silence. "You see," she concludes, looking directly at you with eyes that seem to hold the warmth of 1,000 suns, meditation is not about emptying the room. It is about widening the room so that the monkey, the tiger, and the butterfly can all fit inside without disturbing your peace. The monkey is only a problem if you try to evict him. The teaching settles over the group like a warm blanket. You realize that you, too, have been chasing monkeys your whole life, trying to silence your thoughts, fix your feelings, control your environment. Master Lin has just handed you a banana and told you to stop running. Master Lin pauses to sip her tea, her eyes scanning the circle of novices to ensure the lesson of the monkey has landed. The afternoon sun has moved across the sky during this teaching, and the quality of light in the courtyard has shifted from the bright clarity of morning to the golden, drowsy warmth of late day. You notice this change without any resistance, simply observing how everything in nature demonstrates the teaching of impermanence. Even this beautiful moment, this profound sharing of wisdom, is already passing away. But the story of Taro does not end in the cave. Master Lin continues, setting her cup down with a soft clink. Instead of falling into the trap of spiritual pride, believing he had conquered his mind, Taro made a radical decision. He realized that being peaceful in a silent cave with a sleeping monkey was easy. It was too easy. He wanted to know if his peace was real, or if it was just a fragile flower that would die in the wind. So, he left his mountain sanctuary. He walked down into the valley, into the busiest, loudest, most chaotic village in the province. And there, right in the center of the marketplace, he opened a small tea house. The image shifts in your mind from the pristine silence of high mountains to the chaotic bustle of an ancient marketplace. You can almost smell the charcoal smoke, the frying fish, the sweat of laborers, and the dust of the road. For the first time in decades, Master Lin describes, her voice conjuring the scene vividly. Taro found himself surrounded not by silence, but by noise. Crowds of merchants haggling over silk prices, children crying, carts rattling over cobblestones, stray dogs barking. It was an overwhelming sensory assault of ordinary human existence, and for the first time, he began to practice mindfulness meditation for real, not the comfortable, controlled meditation of his cave, but the raw, honest practice of maintaining awareness in the midst of absolute chaos. One of the younger monks, perhaps thinking of his own difficulty meditating even in the quiet monastery, looks confused. "But Master," he asks tentatively, "isn't it better to practice in peaceful conditions? How can we develop concentration when the world is screaming at us?" Master Lin's smile deepens with infinite patience. This is exactly the misunderstanding that kept Taro in his cave for so long. We think that meditation is about achieving a particular state of mind, a calm, peaceful, undisturbed vacuum. But true meditation, the kind that actually transforms our lives, is about maintaining awareness, regardless of what state of mind is present. In the tea house, Taro could not control his guests. He could not control the noise. He became a servant to the public. He poured tea for angry samurai, for exhausted farmers, for gossiping grandmothers. He learned to treat each noise, each demand, exactly as he had treated the monkey, with a bow and a banana. "One day," she continues, her voice dropping to a whisper that draws you in, "a wealthy merchant stormed into Taro's tea house. This man was known for his terrible temper. He was having a bad day. Perhaps he had lost money, or his wife was angry with him. He sat down and demanded the finest tea immediately. Taro moved with his usual slow grace. He whisked the matcha. He placed the delicate porcelain bowl in front of the merchant. But the merchant was too agitated. He waved his arm to shout at a passerby and knocked the bowl off the table. Smash. The sound cut through the tea house chatter. It was a valuable bowl, an heirloom Taro had brought from the mountains. It lay in 100 pieces on the dirty floor, steaming green tea pooling in the dust. Now, Master Lin asks the circle, what would the old Taro have done? The Taro before the monkey. He would have chased the merchant with a broom, Jun suggests, and the group chuckles. Exactly. He would have reacted. He would have defended his property. He would have added his own anger to the merchant's anger, creating a double storm. But the new Taro, he simply stopped. Master Lin picks up a small brass bell from her tray and rings it once. The clear, sharp tone cuts through the air ding and gradually fades into the silence of the courtyard. The crash of the bowl was just like this bell, she explains. It was a loud, sharp vibration in the air, a disturbance. Taro stood there, and instead of contracting around the loss, he expanded. He remembered the canyon. He became the space in which the crash happened. The space is never broken by the sound. The space is never wet by the tea. The space simply allows the event to be what it is. This metaphor opens something in your understanding, like a door you didn't even know was closed. You realize that you are usually the bowl, fragile, easily broken, constantly worried about falling. But Master Lin is inviting you to be the room. So the practice, you find yourself saying aloud, surprised by your own clarity, is not to prevent the cups from breaking, but to become spacious enough to hold the pieces. Precisely. Master Lin nods with genuine delight, clapping her hands together. You are beginning to understand the heart of Zen stories like this one. It is the difference between the meditation of avoidance and the meditation of acceptance. Taro looked at the shattered porcelain. He looked at the terrified merchant who was expecting a fight, and Taro smiled. He knelt down, picked up the largest shard of the cup, a curved piece that could still hold a sip of liquid, and he poured a tiny amount of fresh tea into it. He offered the shard to the merchant with 2 hands. "The cup is broken," Taro said gently, "but the tea is still good, and the moment is still here. Please, drink." The merchant froze. He had expected shouting. He had expected a demand for payment. Instead, he was offered a moment of connection in the midst of destruction. He took the shard, his hands trembling, and drank the tea. In that moment, the anger drained out of him. He sat down on the floor beside Taro and began to help pick up the pieces. Taro learned that day, Master Lin concludes, pouring the last of the tea into her own cup, that he could be the stable, aware presence in which all experiences, joy, anger, profit, loss arise and pass away. The marketplace was his true monastery. The noise was his true mantra. And the broken cup was his greatest teacher. "The afternoon shadows are getting long," she observes, looking at the sky. "But remember this, you do not need to go to a cave to find peace. Your own kitchen, your office, your traffic jam, that is your tea house. That is where the real tea is served." The story of the marketplace tea house settles into the silence of the courtyard, absorbed by the listening trees and the young novices alike. The afternoon light has softened further, bathing the world in a warm amber glow that seems to slow time itself. Master Lin does not speak immediately. Instead, she begins to prepare for a new demonstration, her movements shifting from the casual storytelling mode to a profound, ritualistic precision. She reaches for a bamboo ladle, a hishaku, and dips it into the iron kettle simmering over the small charcoal brazier. The water inside is hot, whispering with the energy of heat. She lifts the ladle, and in the absolute stillness of the garden, the sound of water pouring into a ceramic bowl becomes a symphony. Shoo! It is a sound that cleanses the ears. It is the sound of a mountain stream, the sound of rain on a roof, the sound of life flowing from one vessel to another. You watch, mesmerized by the simplicity of the act. There is no wasted movement, no hesitation. Master Lin is not just pouring water, she is pouring her entire being into the bowl. In the tradition of Buddhist meditation, she says softly, her voice weaving through the rising steam, "We often speak of the mind as a vessel. Look at this bowl." She holds up a simple, unadorned tea bowl. It is dark, rough-hewn, and imperfectly shaped, yet it holds a quiet dignity. "What makes this bowl useful?" she asks the circle. "The clay," suggests Jun. "The shape?" asks another novice. Master Lin shakes her head gently. "The clay gives it form. The shape gives it beauty. But what makes it useful is the empty space inside. Without that emptiness, it could hold no tea. It would just be a lump of earth. She places the bowl down and picks up the bamboo whisk. With a rapid, rhythmic motion, ch, ch, she begins to whisk the powdered green tea and hot water into a frothy jade liquid. The sound is hypnotic, a rhythmic scratching that mimics the heartbeat of a small bird. Many of you come to the monastery carrying a full cup, she continues, her eyes focused on the swirling green foam. You are full of opinions. You are full of your titles, your histories, your certainties about how the world works. You are full of the idea that you are a general or a novice or a sufferer. When your cup is full of "I already know," there is no room for "I am listening." She stops whisking. The foam settles perfectly on the surface of the tea. "If I tried to pour more tea into a full cup," she says, miming the action over a filled bowl, "what would happen? It would spill," you whisper, the realization rising in your chest. "It would burn your hand and waste the tea." "Exactly." Master Lin nods, offering the freshly made bowl to the person sitting to her right. "It would create a mess. This is why we suffer. Life is constantly trying to pour new wisdom, new experiences, new joy into us. But we are so full of our old stories, our old hurts, our old victories, that the fresh moment spills over the sides. We cannot receive it. To practice," she says, turning her gaze directly to you, "is to tip the cup. It is the brave act of emptying yourself. It is saying, 'I don't know.' It is saying, 'I am willing to be new.' When you empty yourself of your identity, your rank, your need to be right, you become spacious. And in that spaciousness, the universe can finally pour itself into you." You watch the steam rising from the bowl in the cooling evening air. It twists and curls, forming shapes that dissolve as quickly as they appear. You imagine your own mind as that bowl. You think of all the things you are holding on to, the worries about tomorrow, the regrets about yesterday, the definitions of who you are. They feel heavy now. They feel like stale, cold tea that has been sitting in your cup for years. "The beauty of the empty cup," Master Lin whispers, "is that it is always ready. It does not judge the tea. It accepts the bitter tea and the sweet tea with equal openness. It holds the hot and the cold without complaint. It is the ultimate servant and therefore the ultimate master." She picks up the ladle again and pours the remaining hot water over the bamboo whisk to clean it. The water flows over the tines and disappears through the slats of the bamboo tray. Trickle, trickle, trickle. "Tonight," she suggests, "as you lay your head down to sleep, practice emptying your cup. Pour out the day, pour out the conversations, pour out the successes and the failures. Let them all drain away like this water. Return to the state of the empty bowl, dark, quiet, receptive. Only then can the fresh tea of deep sleep fill you completely. The profound peace of this teaching washes over you. You realize that you don't need to do anything to find peace. You only need to stop holding on to the noise. You need to become empty, not in a negative way, but in the way a valley is empty, ready to hold the mist, the moon, and the song of the night bird. The last drops of tea have been drunk, and the sun has finally dipped below the western peaks, leaving the sky painted in shades of bruised purple and deep indigo. The first stars are beginning to prick the velvet canopy above, timid points of light signaling the arrival of the night. The monastery bells ring softly in the distance, gong, 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 calling the community to the evening transition. It is a sound that seems to vibrate not just in the air, but in the hollow spaces of your own bones, reminding you that everything is returning to rest. As the circle of novices begins to disperse, bowing silently to their teacher and to each other, Master Lin motions for you to stay a moment longer. The air has grown cool, carrying the sharp scent of damp earth and night-blooming jasmine, but the warmth of the tea still lingers in your chest. Master Lin reaches into the deep sleeve of her robe. Her movements are slow and deliberate, like a magician revealing a secret that has been kept safe for centuries. She withdraws her hand and extends it toward you, palm open. "Take this," she whispers, her voice blending with the sound of the wind in the ginkgo leaves. In the center of her weathered palm sits a stone. It is not a gemstone, nor is it a piece of carved jade. It is a simple river stone, dark gray and perfectly, impossibly smooth. It is oval-shaped, fitting into the hollow of a human hand as if it were made to be held. You reach out and take it. The stone is surprisingly heavy for its size, dense with the weight of the earth. It feels cool against your skin, a grounding sensation that immediately pulls your attention out of your head and down into your body. It feels solid. It feels ancient. "This stone," Master Lin says, watching your fingers close around it, "was not always like this. Once, 1,000 years ago, it was a jagged piece of rock that fell from the high cliffs. It had sharp edges. It was rough. It was full of resistance, fighting against everything that touched it. It fell into the mountain stream," she continues, gesturing toward the sound of water flowing in the distance. "And for centuries, the water rushed over it. The water was soft. The stone was hard. In a battle between rock and water, the rock always thinks it is stronger." She smiles, a smile that knows the truth of things. But the water did not fight the stone. It simply flowed. It flowed over the sharp edges, day after day, year after year, century after century. It caressed the stone with patience. It wrapped the stone in its fluid embrace. And slowly, imperceptibly, the stone surrendered its sharpness. "It stopped being a weapon," she says softly, "and became a jewel of the river." You run your thumb over the surface of the stone. There is not a single rough patch left. It is slick, polished, frictionless. It feels like solidified silence. In many Zen stories, we are taught that the soft overcomes the hard, Master Lin explains. This stone is a physical proof of that truth. It did not become smooth by fighting the river. It became smooth by allowing the river to polish it. It accepted the friction. It accepted the tumbling. It accepted the constant change. Most people, she adds, looking deeply into your eyes, are like the jagged rock before it fell into the water. We are full of sharp edges, our defenses, our rigid opinions, our need to control. We cut ourselves, and we cut others, because we are afraid to let life smooth us out. But when you practice Zen meditation, you are entering the river. You are allowing the stream of awareness to wash over your sharp edges. You are not trying to break the stone. You are simply bathing it in attention until the defenses naturally melt away. "Keep this stone with you," Master Lin instructs, her voice taking on the quality of a gentle command. "Put it in your pocket during the day. Place it under your pillow at night. Whenever you feel yourself becoming rigid, whenever you feel your anger rising like a wall, or your fear sharpening into a weapon, hold this stone. Feel its smoothness," she whispers. "Remember that it endured the flood, the drought, the freezing winter, and the burning summer, and it only became more beautiful. Remember that you can be like this stone, heavy, grounded, and polished by the very things that try to hurt you." You close your fingers tighter around the river stone. It absorbs the warmth of your hand, creating a bridge of temperature between you and the earth. It feels like an anchor in a world that is constantly spinning, constantly demanding, constantly noisy. This small, dark object is a piece of pure, unmoving stability. "Thank you, Master Lin," you say, bowing deeply. "I will carry it as a reminder." "It is not just a reminder," she corrects gently, standing up to leave. "It is a teacher. The stone knows how to be still better than any human. When you cannot find your own stillness, borrow the stillness of the stone. It has plenty to share." She places her hands together in a gesture of gratitude and turns to walk back toward the main hall. You watch her go, her grey robes, blending into the deepening shadows of the garden. You are alone now, but you do not feel lonely. You have the stone, you have the night, and you have the growing realization that the river of life is not your enemy, but the sculptor that is shaping you into your true, smooth, polished self. As you leave the courtyard, the stone in your hand feels like a secret weight, a center of gravity that keeps you from floating away into your thoughts. You walk slowly, matching your breath to the rhythm of your footsteps, feeling the cool night air on your face and the solid earth beneath your feet. You are becoming the river. You are becoming the stone. You are becoming the space in which both exist. You follow a moonlit path that winds away from the main temple complex, drawn by the hypnotic beauty of the evening chanting rising from the meditation hall. The voices blend together in harmonies that seem to capture the very essence of what you have been learning, individual notes, maintaining their unique qualities while contributing to a greater, seamless whole. You realize that this is another metaphor for the practice. You can maintain your individuality, your personality, your unique way of being in the world, while simultaneously resting in the vast awareness that connects all beings. The monastery grounds have taken on a magical, almost otherworldly quality in the evening light. Shadows dance between ancient cedar trees. Paper lanterns cast golden pools of warmth along the stone walkways, and the entire atmosphere seems to pulse with the accumulated silence of centuries. The air is cool and still, carrying the scent of water and night-blooming flowers. As you approach a small, secluded pond near the edge of the cliff, you notice a figure sitting alone on a wooden bench. It is an elderly man in simple, faded robes, his face weathered by decades of experience, but radiant with an inner peace that seems to illuminate the space around him like a lantern. Something about his presence draws you, a magnetic pull of profound stillness, and you find yourself sitting quietly beside him without needing an invitation. He doesn't acknowledge your presence immediately. He sits with his hands folded in his lap, his gaze fixed on the surface of the pond. You sense that he is completely aware of your arrival, yet he feels no need to disrupt the silence to validate it. After several minutes of shared quietude, he speaks without turning toward you. "The chanting is beautiful tonight," he says in a voice like aged whiskey, smooth, warm, with depths that hint at rich, complex experience. "But do you know what I find even more beautiful?" You shake your head slightly, then realize he isn't looking at you. "No, Master," you whisper. "The silence between the notes," he says. "The space that allows the music to exist." You listen more carefully to the distant chanting and begin to notice what he means. Between each syllable, each phrase, each breath of the monks, there is a pregnant silence that somehow contains the entire song. That silence is not empty. It is the canvas upon which the sound is painted. That silence, the old man continues, is like the awareness we have been discussing today. It is not the absence of experience. It is the presence that makes all experience possible. You turn to look at him more directly and realize this must be Master Hosin, the eldest teacher in the monastery, known for his profound insights into the nature of consciousness itself. His eyes, when he finally turns to meet your gaze, hold depths that seem to have witnessed the rise and fall of countless stars without being touched by any of them. "Master Hosin," you say, bowing your head slightly. He smiles, a gesture that crinkles the corners of his eyes into a map of kindness. Word travels fast in a monastery. He chuckles softly. "I hear you have been collecting stones and drinking empty tea. I wonder if you would like to hear about the deepest level of this practice. The level where meditation for anxiety transforms into the recognition of your true face." Your heart quickens with anticipation. "I would be honored," you reply. Master Hosin points a gnarled finger toward the pond. The water is dark and still, a perfect mirror reflecting the full moon that hangs high in the sky above the mountain peaks. The reflection is so clear, so bright, that for a moment it looks as if there are two moons, one in the heavens and one in the water. Tell me, he says, which moon is the true moon? The one in the sky, you answer automatically. And the one in the water? It is just a reflection. Good. Master Hosin nods. He reaches down and picks up a small pebble. With a gentle flick of his wrist, he tosses it into the center of the pond. Plop. Ripples spread outward in perfect concentric circles. The smooth surface of the water is shattered. The reflection of the moon, which a moment ago was a perfect sphere, suddenly jaggeds and dances. It stretches, breaks apart, and twists into wild, chaotic shapes of light. Look at the moon in the water now, Hosin whispers. It is broken, it is agitated, it is distorted. If you believed that the reflection was the moon itself, you would be very upset right now. You would think, oh no, the moon is breaking, the moon is shaking, I must fix it. You watch the dancing light, mesmerized by the chaos on the water's surface. But look up, he commands gently. You lift your gaze to the night sky. The real moon hangs there serene, round, luminous, completely untouched by the pebble, completely unaffected by the ripples in the pond. This is the mistake we make, Master Hosin says, his voice vibrating with truth. We confuse the reflection for the source. Your mind, your thoughts, your emotions, your nervous system is the pond. It reflects the light of your awareness. But the pond is easily disturbed. A harsh word, a lost job, a sudden fear. These are pebbles. They create ripples. They distort the reflection. When you feel anxious, when you feel angry, when you feel broken, he continues, it is only the reflection in the mind that is shaking. You look at your thoughts and say, I am broken, I am anxious. But you are not the reflection, you are the moon in the sky. This teaching hits you with the force of a revelation. You look back and forth between the agitated water and the stillness of the sky. This is a central theme in many ancient Buddhist stories, Hosin explains. The seeker runs around trying to smooth the water with their hands, trying to force the reflection to be still, but hitting the water only creates more ripples. The master simply looks up. He remembers that his true nature is the high, bright moon that no ripple can ever reach. So, you ask, your voice filled with wonder, when I feel pain or stress, that's just the water shaking. Precisely, Master Hosin smiles, and the ripples in the pond finally begin to fade, the reflection slowly reassembling itself into a perfect circle. The water will shake. That is the nature of water. The mind will react. That is the nature of the mind. But you, the awareness that witnesses the shaking, you are always whole. You are always safe. You are always at peace. You do not need to stop the ripples to be the moon, he whispers, leaning closer. You just need to remember where you are standing. You sit together in the profound silence as the pond returns to glass, reflecting the heavens once more. You feel a shift in your identity, a lifting of a burden you didn't know you were carrying. You are not the disturbed water. You are the light that shines upon it. Now, Master Hosin whispers, his gaze drifting from the pond up to the infinite expanse of the night sky. Let us take this teaching one step further. It is one thing to understand that you are the moon and not the reflection. It is another to feel it in your bones. He gestures broadly at the canopy of stars above, a breathtaking tapestry of diamond dust scattered across the black velvet of the cosmos. The air is crisp, and the silence of the mountain night feels vast, pressing against your skin like a cool, weightless blanket. Tell me, he asks, when you look up there, what do you see? I see stars, you answer, tracing the constellation of the Great Bear. I see the moon. I see clouds drifting. Good, he nods. You see the objects, the furniture of the universe. But do you see the space? You pause, shifting your focus. Usually, your eyes latch onto the bright points of light. But now, guided by his question, you look at the darkness between the stars. You realize that the stars are tiny specks compared to the unimaginable vastness of the empty space that holds them. Most people, Hosin continues, his voice, soft and rhythmic, are obsessed with the stars. In their own minds, they are obsessed with their thoughts, their emotions, their dramas. These are the stars of consciousness. They sparkle. They demand attention. They are bright and loud. But without the empty space, he says, the stars would have nowhere to hang. Without the silence, the music could not be heard. Without the emptiness of your awareness, you could not experience any thought or feeling. He turns to face you, and in the moonlight, his face looks ancient and timeless. You are not the stars, my friend. You are the space. Close your eyes, he commands gently. Let us find this space together. You close your eyes. The visual world vanishes, replaced by the dark screen of your inner vision. Listen, Hosin whispers. From far away, the sound of the monastery bell rings out one last time for the night. Goo. Do not focus on the sound, he guides you. Focus on the silence that surrounds the sound. Focus on the silence that accepts the sound. The sound rises, vibrates, and then fades away. Now, he asks, did the silence die when the sound faded? Or was the silence there before the bell rang, during the ringing, and after it stopped? It was always there, you realize, speaking the words into the cool night air. Yes, that silence is you. Master Hosin claps his hands together sharply. Clap. The sound is sudden, sharp, and startling. Where did that sound happen? He asks immediately. In my awareness. You stumble. And can this awareness be startled? He asks intensely. Can this awareness be broken by a clap? Can it be stained by a bad thought? Can it be burned by anger? You look inward, searching for the listener behind your ears, the watcher behind your eyes. You try to find the edges of your own awareness, but you cannot find a boundary. You cannot find a shape. You feel a sudden, dizzying sense of expansion, as if the walls of your ego have dissolved, and you are spilling out into the night, merging with the mountain, the pond, and the stars. I can't find me, you whisper. I can't find the one who is listening. There is just listening. This is the ultimate secret, Master Hosin says, his voice filled with a profound, vibrating peace. There is no little person inside your head managing the show. There is only vast, open awareness. Pure, empty, radiant space. This recognition, he says, placing a hand on your shoulder to ground you, is the true meaning of spiritual awakening. It is not becoming a better person. It is not fixing your personality. It is waking up to the fact that you are the sky in which the personality floats. When you know you are the space, he continues, you become fearless. Why? Because space cannot be hurt. Throw a spear at the sky. Does the sky bleed? Scream at the silence. Does the silence get offended? Burn a fire in the void. Does the void catch fire? You are invincible, he whispers, not because you are hard like armor, but because you are open like the night. The chanting from the hall has stopped. The monastery is settling into profound stillness. The only sound is the beating of your own heart, a rhythmic drum in the vastness of your being. You feel lighter than you have ever felt in your life. The heavy backpack of your history, your identity, your worries, it hasn't disappeared, but it feels like a small cloud drifting through the infinite sky of who you really are. Go now, Master Hosin says gently, standing up. The night is deep. Let this understanding carry you into your dreams. Sleep not as a tired person, but as the vast silence resting in itself. As you walk back to your guest quarters, you do not feel like a solid object moving through the world. You feel like a field of awareness moving through itself. The path, the trees, the moon, they are not separate from you. They are appearing in you. You are the silence. You are the space. You are the home you have been looking for. You return to your guest quarters, The wooden floorboards cool beneath your bare feet. The room is simple: a tatami mat, a low table, a single calligraphy scroll hanging in the alcove that reads just this. But tonight, the simplicity feels luxurious. You realize you don't need more things to fill the space. You need less noise to fill the mind. You extinguish the oil lamp, and the room plunges into darkness. But it is not a frightening darkness. It is the velvety, fertile darkness of the empty cup Master Lin spoke of. You lie down, pulling the heavy quilt up to your chin, feeling the weight of the day's lessons settling into your muscles. The angry general, the broken branch, the echoing canyon, the monkey mind, the empty cup, the moon in the water, the silence between the stars, they all swirl together not as conflicting thoughts, but as a single, harmonious mosaic of understanding. As you close your eyes, you do not lose consciousness in the usual way. Instead of falling asleep, you feel as if you are dissolving into it. The boundary between your skin and the air seems to soften. The boundary between you and the room begins to fade. You are entering the state of deep sleep, not as a retreat from life, but as a reunion with the source of life. In this state, the body becomes heavy, sinking into the earth like a stone returning to a riverbed, while the awareness becomes light, detaching from the heavy gravity of identity. You find yourself drifting into a lucid dreamscape, a practice known in the mountains as dream yoga. You are flying. You are soaring effortlessly above the temple of the floating mist. Below you, the monastery looks like a scattering of jewels on the spine of the dragon-like mountain. You see the courtyard, where Master Kenji rakes the gravel. From this height, the patterns look like fingerprints of the cosmos. You see the pond where Master Hosen sat, reflecting the moon like a tiny, unblinking eye. You see the canyon, a jagged scar filled with white silk. The air up here is thin and pure. You feel absolutely weightless. There is no effort in your flight. You are being carried by the currents of the wind, dipping and rising with the thermal drafts. You realize that this is what your true nature feels like when it is unburdened by the heavy armor of the self. It is buoyant, it is free, it has no edges to defend and no weight to carry. You fly through a cloud, feeling the cool mist condense on your spirit skin and then burst out into the starlight again. You understand now what Master Kenji meant about the sky not being hurt by the clouds. You are the sky. You are passing through the weather of your own mind, untouched, unharmed, eternally vast. The dream shifts, dissolving into pure, objectless light, a rejuvenating bath of energy that knits together the raveled edges of your nervous system. There are no stories here, no dramas, no past or future, just the hum of existence, the silent vibration of being, and then, softly, the light begins to change. It shifts from the silver of starlight to the soft, bruised purple of pre-dawn. You wake. There is no alarm clock, no jarring noise. You simply emerge from the ocean of sleep like a diver breaking the surface of a calm lagoon. One moment you are floating in the depths, the next you are breathing the air of the morning. There is no grogginess, no mental fog. Your eyes open, and you are instantly, completely awake. You lie there for a moment, watching the grey light filter through the paper screen of your window. You feel different. The anxious vibration that usually hums in your chest upon waking the immediate, "What do I have to do today?" Panic is gone. In its place is a quiet curiosity. The silence of the mountain has moved inside you. You sit up, and your body feels light, rested, and aligned. You dress quietly in the semi-darkness, your movements efficient and mindful. You slide open the door of your quarters and step out onto the wooden veranda. The world is being born again. The mountain is wrapped in a thick, silvery mist that obscures the valley floor, making the monastery feel like an island floating in the sky. The air is cold and smells of damp pine needles and wet stone. Everything is silent, but it is a pregnant silence, waiting for the first bird, the first ray of Sunday. As you breathe in this pristine air, you have a sudden, visceral understanding of a core truth of Buddhist philosophy, that every moment is a fresh birth. The person who went to sleep last night, the one with the worries, the history, the name is gone. The person standing here now is new, unwritten, capable of anything. You are not dragging the corpse of yesterday into the morning. You are starting with a blank page. You step off the veranda, and your feet find the stone path naturally. You feel drawn toward the upper reaches of the monastery, toward a plume of smoke rising from a kiln high on the ridge. Your legs move with a new ease, carried by the momentum of the dream flight, walking towards the next lesson that awaits in the mist. The path winds upward, leading you away from the manicured gardens and into a wilder section of the mountain where the trees are older and the air smells of wood smoke and raw earth. You follow the faint, rhythmic sound of a foot treadle thump, 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 a heartbeat that seems to rise from the ground itself. This steady pulse draws you toward a rustic wooden structure perched on the edge of a rocky outcrop, its chimney releasing a thin ribbon of white smoke that joins the morning mist. This is the domain of Master Yumi, the monastery's master potter and guardian of the unforced form. As you step through the open doorway, the warm, dry heat of the kiln meets the cool morning air, creating a comforting embrace. Inside, shelves are lined with hundreds of bowls, vases, and teacups, each one unique, their glazes capturing the colors of the mountain moss green, stone gray, sunset orange. In the center of the room, sitting at a wooden kickwheel, is Master Yumi. She is a woman of indeterminate age, her hair wrapped in a faded indigo scarf, her arms strong and dusted with white powder. She does not look up as you enter. Her entire being is focused on the spinning mound of wet clay before her. You watch in silence. Her foot taps the treadle, keeping the heavy stone wheel spinning with a hypnotic momentum. Her hands are wet and slick with grey mud. She does not seem to be shaping the clay so much as holding space for it to shape itself. Her fingers touch the spinning walls with a touch as light as a butterfly's wing, yet the clay responds instantly, rising, widening, curving inward. "Watch closely," she says, her voice husky and warm, like the sound of dry clay rubbing together. She hasn't looked at you, yet she knows you are there. Most people think the potter makes the pot. They think I am imposing my will on this lump of earth. She presses her thumb gently into the center of the spinning mound. "But if I try to force the clay," she explains, "if I push too hard, or if I am impatient, look what happens." She applies a sudden, rigid pressure. The graceful cylinder of clay instantly wobbles, twists, and collapses into a chaotic lump. The harmony is broken. "You see," she says, stopping the wheel, "when I use force, the earth fights back. This is how most people live their lives. They have an idea of who they should be, or how their day should go, and they try to force reality into that shape. They push, they strain, and then they wonder why their life collapses into a wobble." She scrapes the ruined clay off the wheel and throws a fresh, wet ball onto the center. Thwack. The secret of Wu-Wei effortless action is not about being passive, Master Yumi continues, starting the wheel again. Thump, thump, thump. It is about listening. I listen to the clay. I feel its texture, its moisture, its grain. I ask it, "What do you want to become?" She cups her hands around the spinning mound, and this time she moves with the clay, not against it. She finds the center not by forcing it to be still, but by aligning her own center with the movement. "I provide the stability," she whispers, "and the clay provides the movement. We dance. I don't command it to rise. I simply offer a path for it to go up. And because it is spinning, it naturally wants to rise." The clay shoots up between her fingers, forming a perfect, tall neck. It looks like magic. It looks like the clay is alive and growing. "Here," she says, standing up and wiping her hands on her apron. "You try." She gestures for you to sit at the wheel. You hesitate, feeling the weight of your inexperience, but her encouraging nod settles you. You sit down. The stone wheel is heavy. You kick it into motion. You place your hands on the cold, wet clay. Immediately, you feel the wild energy of the spin. The clay pushes against your hands, trying to throw you off. Your first instinct is to tighten your muscles, to grip hard, to dominate the wobble. Breathe, Master Yumi instructs, placing her hand gently on your shoulder. Don't fight the wobble. If you fight it, you amplify it. Soften your hands. Bring your elbows into your ribs. Connect your hands to your core. You follow her guidance. You relax your grip. You stop trying to fix the clay and start trying to center yourself. As you find your own stillness, a miracle happens. The clay calms down. It stops fighting you and starts slipping through your fingers with a silky, obedient grace. You are no longer two separate things fighting for control. You are a single system moving in harmony. You feel that? Master Yumi asks softly. That moment where the struggle disappears. That is the 0 point. That is where the pot is born. In your life, she tells you, as you watch a small bowl take shape under your own hands, you are always on the wheel. The world is spinning. Circumstances are pushing against you. If you are rigid, if you react with tension, you will wobble. You will feel exhausted. But if you center yourself, if you soften your grip and align with the movement, you can shape anything. You realize that the clay is teaching you the same lesson as the river stone and the canyon echo. It is teaching you that true control comes from giving up control. It comes from a deep, listening partnership with the present moment. Beautiful. Master Yumi praises as you ease your hands away, leaving a simple, slightly imperfect, but stable bowl on the wheel. It is a little crooked, but it is honest. It has your spirit in it. She cuts the bowl free with a wire string and sets it on a board to dry. Remember this feeling, she says. The feeling of the clay moving through your hands, not by your hands. When you go back to the world, try to treat your problems like this wet clay. Don't pound them into shape. Center yourself. Listen to what the situation requires and gently guide it toward its natural form. You stand up, your hands still cool and gray with the earth. You feel grounded. You feel capable. You realize that you are both the potter and the clay, constantly shaping and being shaped, spinning on the great wheel of existence. Master Yumi wipes her hands on a rough cloth, leaving streaks of gray clay on the fabric like accidental calligraphy. She motions for you to follow her to the back of the workshop, where a large, jagged opening in the wall looks out over the valley. Here, the air is cooler, and a small wooden bench invites contemplation. You shape that bowl well for a beginner, she says, her eyes crinkling with a genuine warmth that feels like the radiant heat of the kiln itself. But tell me, what happens if it cracks in the fire? What happens if, after all your centering and patience, the heat is too much and it shatters? You look at the drying rack where your bowl sits, vulnerable and grey. I suppose I would feel like I failed. I would feel like the work was wasted. Master Yumi nods slowly, as if she expected this answer. She reaches up to a high shelf, one that requires her to stand on her tiptoes, and brings down a small wooden box wrapped in silk. She handles it with extreme reverence, as if it contains the ashes of an ancestor. "Let me share a memory with you," she says, unwrapping the silk to reveal a single, jagged shard of pottery. It is not a whole cup, just a fragment, but the glaze is extraordinary, a shifting landscape of deep reds, iridescent blacks, and flashes of gold that seem to glow from within. 10 years ago, she begins, her voice dropping into the storytelling cadence of the ancient Buddhist stories passed down through generations of artisans. I was preparing for the most important firing of my life. I had spent 6 months creating a collection of vases for the emperor's summer palace. They were perfect, symmetrical, flawless. I had poured every ounce of my skill and ego into them. I loaded the kiln. She gestures to the massive brick oven behind her. I stoked the fire for 3 days and 3 nights, not sleeping, just feeding the beast. I wanted the temperature to be higher than I had ever dared before. I wanted to create a glaze that would make the emperor weep with joy. You can picture her younger, fiercer, driven by the need for perfection, feeding logs into the roaring mouth of the kiln while the mountains slept. But I pushed too hard, she says softly, turning the shard in the light. On the 3rd night, a storm rolled in. The wind howled like a demon. The temperature inside the kiln spiked uncontrollably, and the structure, it simply gave up. With a sound like a thunderclap, the roof of the kiln collapsed. She pauses, and you feel the devastation of that moment. I stood in the rain, watching my life's work crushed under a pile of smoking bricks. The heat was so intense I couldn't even get close. I fell to my knees in the mud and screamed. I felt that the universe had betrayed me. I felt that my art was dead. For a week, I couldn't bring myself to clear the rubble. I sat in this workshop, staring at the ruin, feeling bitter and empty. I thought about leaving the monastery. I thought about never touching clay again. Master Yumi looks at you, her eyes clear and unblinking. Have you ever felt that way? That the roof of your life has collapsed, burying everything you worked for? You nod, thinking of your own losses, the plans that crumbled, the relationships that broke under the weight of expectation. Finally, she continues, Master Kenji came to see me. He didn't offer empty words of comfort. He just handed me a shovel and said, "Let us see what the fire has left us." We began to dig through the cold ash and broken bricks. Everything was smashed. Thousands of shards. My perfect symmetry was gone. My flawless forms were dust. But then, she lifts the shard in her hand higher, catching a ray of sunlight. I found this, and then another, and another. Because the kiln had collapsed, the vases had been buried in burning embers and ash. The lack of oxygen and the intense, uneven heat had done something miraculous to the glaze. It had created colors I could never have produced on purpose. The disaster had birthed a beauty that was wild, unpredictable, and deeper than perfection. She presses the shard into your hand. It is cool and sharp, but the surface feels like polished glass. I realized then, Yumi says, that the fire had not destroyed my work. It had completed it. It had taken my limited human idea of perfection and shattered it to make room for something divine. These shards, they were more beautiful than the whole vases would have ever been. I took the pieces. She gestures to a display of bowls that look like mosaics, fused together with veins of gold. I learned the art of kintsugi golden joinery. I put them back together, not hiding the cracks, but highlighting them with gold lacquer. This is the teaching of the broken kiln, she whispers. We think we want a life of unbroken, symmetrical perfection. We want the vase to stay whole. But the soul grows in the kiln of loss. The most beautiful people I know are not the ones who have never been broken. They are the ones who have been shattered by life, cooked in the fire of suffering, and put themselves back together with the gold of compassion. She takes the shard back and wraps it gently in the silk. So, my friend, she says with a fierce tenderness, do not be afraid of the heat. Do not be afraid of the collapse. When your plans crumble, when your heart breaks, when your roof falls in, do not despair. You are just in the kiln. The fire is creating colors in you that no easy life could ever paint. The emperor never got his perfect vases. She smiles, a mischievous glint returning to her eyes. But he bought the shards. He said they reminded him that even an empire can fall, and yet beauty remains. She stands up and brushes the dust from her apron. Come, she says. The wheel is waiting. Let us make another bowl. And this time, let us make it with the understanding that it is destined to break, and in its breaking, it will find its true story. You follow her back to the wheel, but you look at the kiln differently now. It is no longer just an oven, it is a womb of transformation. You look at your own scars differently too. They are not signs of failure, they are the places where the gold goes. Master Yumi places the shard of kintsugi pottery back onto her shelf, the gold lacquer catching the last rays of the afternoon Sunday. The lesson of the broken kiln lingers in the air, warm and substantial. She wipes her hands on her apron one last time and then gestures toward the large, open window that frames the western peaks. "Before you go," she says, her voice dropping to a hush, "there is one more artisan I want you to meet. She lives just there, in the corner of the window frame. She is perhaps the greatest master of Wu Wei in the entire monastery." You step closer, expecting to see another monk, or perhaps a statue. Instead, squinting against the light, you see a small garden spider, suspended in the center of an intricate, shimmering web. The silk strands are almost invisible, yet they catch the light in a perfect geometric spiral, a mandala of engineering that defies the chaos of the wind. "Watch her," Master Yumi whispers. "She has been working on this masterpiece all afternoon." You observe the spider. She sits perfectly still at the hub of her creation, her legs sensing the vibrations of the silk, waiting with infinite patience. She is not anxious about whether a fly will come. She is not worrying about the future. She is simply present, embodied, complete. Then, a sudden gust of mountain wind sweeps up the cliff face. It rushes through the open window, swirling the dust and rattling the pottery on the shelves. The delicate web balloons outward, like a sail. You flinch, empathizing with the fragility of the structure. Snap! One of the main anchor threads breaks under the strain. The beautiful spiral collapses on one side, the symmetry ruined in an instant. A large section of the web flaps uselessly in the breeze, tangled and broken. "Ah," Master Yumi says softly. "Disaster." You watch the spider, projecting your own human emotions onto her. You imagine she must be frustrated. She worked so hard. It took hours to build that. Surely, she will give up in despair, or rage against the wind, or sit in a corner, feeling sorry for herself. But the spider does none of those things. The moment the wind dies down, she moves. She does not pause to mourn the old web. She does not hold a meeting to analyze why the wind is so unfair. She simply crawls to the broken thread, cuts away the ruined section with her legs, and immediately begins to spin a new line. She drops, swings, and attaches. She climbs, pulls, and secures. Her movements are rhythmic, unhurried, and precise. There is no hesitation in her action, no resistance to the reality of the broken web. She is already in the process of rebuilding, not because she has to in a drudgery sense, but because spinning is what she is. "Do you see?" Master Yumi asks, her eyes full of admiration for the tiny creature. She does not tell herself a story about what happened. She doesn't say, "Oh, I am such a failure. My web always breaks." She doesn't say, "The wind hates me." She doesn't say, "I'll never spin again." She simply sees, web broken. And the natural response is, spin. You watch the spider work. In minutes, the damage is repaired. The web is whole again, perhaps slightly different in shape, adapted to the new airflow, but functional and beautiful. This is the essence of effortless effort, Master Yumi explains. It is not that she doesn't work hard. She works very hard. But there is no friction in her mind. There is no gap between the event and her response. The wind blows, the web breaks, the spider spins. It is one continuous movement of life. We humans, she sighs, leaning against the workbench, we break our own webs with our thoughts. When something goes wrong, a project fails, a relationship ends, a plan changes, we spend days, weeks, sometimes years sitting in the wreckage, complaining about the wind. We create a secondary layer of suffering. The first layer is the broken web that is just reality. The second layer is our story about it. This shouldn't be happening. Why is this always happening to me? It's not fair. That second layer is heavy. That is what exhausts us. You think about the webs in your own life that have been torn, the career path that didn't work out, the trust that was broken. You realize how much time you spent staring at the torn threads, wishing they were still whole, instead of simply spinning new ones. Imagine, Master Yumi suggests, if you could respond to life like this spider. When you are tired, you rest. When you are hungry, you eat. When the web breaks, you spin. No drama, no story. Just the next necessary action. This is the freedom of the natural world. The trees don't complain about winter. The river doesn't complain about the rocks. The spider doesn't complain about the wind. They just adjust. They flow. They continue. She reaches out and gently closes the window shutter halfway, protecting the spider's work from the strongest gusts. Tonight, she says, you will join the community for the evening meal. Watch how the monks eat. Watch how they clean their bowls. It is the same as the spider. There is a job to be done, and they do it. Simple, direct, beautiful. Leave your stories here, in the kiln, she adds with a smile. Burn them up. Go back down the mountain lighter than you came. Be like the spider, anchored in your center, ready to repair whatever breaks, weaving your life one thread at a time. As you leave the potter's hut and begin the descent back toward the main hall, the image of the spider stays with you. You feel a new kind of resilience rising in your chest, not a hard, armored resilience that tries to withstand every blow, but a soft, fluid resilience that knows how to repair itself endlessly. You realize that you don't need to fear the wind anymore. Let it blow. Let the web break. You know how to spin. The sun has now fully set, and the path is illuminated by stone lanterns that cast soft pools of yellow light on the moss. You walk through these pools of light, feeling like a weaver moving through the tapestry of the night, connecting the darkness with steps of conscious attention. You are ready to eat. You are ready to be. You are ready to spin. You follow the soft glow of lanterns toward the dining hall, known in the monastery as the Hall of Cloudless Hunger. The air is filled with the savory, earthy scent of simmering root vegetables and steamed rice, a fragrance that triggers a primitive, grounding gratitude in your stomach. You remove your shoes at the threshold, placing them neatly beside dozens of others, and step into the warm, wooden interior. The hall is vast and shadowed, illuminated only by low-hanging oil lamps that cast amber circles on the polished floorboards. Rows of low tables are arranged in long lines, and the community is already gathering. Monks in grey and indigo robes glide to their seats with the silence of ghosts, their movements synchronized and fluid. There is no chatter, no social pleasantries, no clattering of chairs. There is only the soft rustle of fabric and the collective rhythm of breathing. You find your cushion near the back, guided by the young novice, June. You sit cross-legged, mimicking the upright, dignified posture of the others. In front of you sits a set of nested lacquered bowls, oryoki wrapped in a dark cloth. The bundle looks like a closed flower, waiting to bloom. A sharp clack from wooden clappers signals the beginning of the ritual. In unison, the entire room begins to chant. It is not a melody, but a low, rumbling drone that seems to rise from the belly of the earth. They are chanting the 5 contemplations, acknowledging where the food comes from and determining whether their conduct merits this offering. The sound vibrates through the floorboards and into your spine, dissolving the boundary between you and the room. Then, silence returns. Absolute, heavy, pregnant silence. Servers move down the rows with large wooden buckets. They kneel before each person, ladling rice and vegetable stew into the offered bowls. You notice the way they move, with the same effortless action Master Yumi spoke of. They do not rush, they do not spill. They treat the ladle and the bowl with the same reverence one might offer a sacred relic. When it is your turn, you bow slightly, holding out your bowl. The steam rises into your face, carrying the scent of ginger and miso. You feel the warmth of the food radiating through the lacquer into your palms. It is a sensation of pure intimacy. You begin to eat. In the outside world, eating is often a distraction, something done while checking phones, watching screens, or planning the future. But here, eating is a meditation. It is the only thing happening in the universe. You lift a spoonful of rice to your mouth. You notice the texture sticky, firm, individual grains. You notice the flavor, subtle, sweet, starchy. You chew slowly, and because there is no noise to distract you, the act of chewing becomes a symphony of sensation. Clack, scrape, chew. The sounds of the meal are the only music. The click of chopsticks against wood, the soft slurping of broth, a sign of appreciation. The sound of bowls being set down. It is a communal rhythm, a shared heartbeat of sustenance. As you eat, the image of the spider returns to you. The spider spins because it is her nature. You eat because it is yours. There is no greed in this room, no gluttony, just the simple, honest fueling of the body so that it can continue its work of awakening. You look at the vegetables in your bowl, a piece of carrot, a slice of radish. Suddenly, you see the web Master Yumi spoke of, but on a cosmic scale. You realize that this piece of carrot is not just a vegetable. It is the rain that fell on the mountain 3 months ago. It is the soil that held the seed. It is the sunlight that pulled the green leaves upward. It is the back-breaking labor of the old monk in the terrace garden. You are not just eating food, you are eating the universe. You are consuming the hard work of the sun, the earth, and the community. A profound wave of gratitude washes over you, bringing tears to your eyes. You realize that you are connected to everything. The boundary between me and the world dissolves with every swallow. When the meal is finished, hot water is poured into the bowls. You use a small slice of pickled radish to scrub the sides of the bowl, cleaning every last grain of rice and drop of sauce. Then, you eat the radish and drink the water. Nothing is wasted, not a single grain. The bowls are wiped dry, restacked, and wrapped back into their cloth bundle. The clappers sound again. Clack. The meal is over. The hall remains spotless, as if no one was ever there. But you feel different. You feel heavy, with nourishment, but light in spirit. You have participated in a ritual that transforms a biological necessity into a sacred act of communion. You realize that mindfulness meditation is not just sitting on a cushion. It is treating every grain of rice as if it were a pearl of wisdom. You rise with the others, bowing to the empty cushion where you sat, acknowledging the space that held you. As you file out into the cool night air, you feel a deep, abiding sense of belonging not just to this monastery, but to the great, intricate web of life itself. You wake the next morning to a sound that has transformed the world while you slept. The steady, rhythmic drumming of mountain rain. It is not a violent storm, but a heavy, soaking downpour that wraps the monastery in a curtain of grey silk. The bells are mute today, their sounds swallowed by the rain, replaced by the endless, soothing percussion of water hitting roof tiles, stone paths, and thirsty leaves. You dress warmly and step out under the shelter of the covered walkways. The air is thick with moisture and the smell of ozone. You find yourself drawn away from the buildings, down a path that leads into the dense forest behind the temple. The rain here creates a different music, a soft, whispering hiss as it filters through millions of leaves. The path leads you to a grove of towering bamboo. The stalks are thick, emerald green, and rise straight up into the mist like pillars of a natural cathedral. In the center of this grove stands Master Takeshi. He is different from the other masters, tall, wiry, with an energy that feels like a coiled spring. He is the monastery's guardian of resilience, the one who teaches that strength is not about being hard, but about being flexible. He stands perfectly still in the rain, wearing a straw hat and a rain cape made of woven reeds. He is watching the bamboo sway in the gusting wind. "Good morning," he says without turning, his voice cutting clearly through the sound of the rain. "The sky is washing the mountain today. It is a good day to learn about strength." You step under the shelter of a small wooden pavilion nearby to watch him. "Look at the oak tree over there." Master Takeshi points to a massive, gnarled oak on the edge of the grove. It is strong. It is rigid. It refuses to move. It says to the wind, "I am the mighty oak. I will not bow to you." "But look at its branches," he continues. "Do you see the scars? Do you see the limbs lying broken on the ground? Because it resists the wind breaks it. Its strength is brittle." Then he gestures to the bamboo surrounding you. The wind gusts harder, driving sheets of rain sideways. The tall bamboo stalks lean far over, bending so low they almost touch the ground. They look like they are surrendering. They look weak. "Now watch," Takeshi whispers. As the gust fades, the bamboo stalks spring back instantly to their upright position. Whoosh! They oscillate gently and then return to perfect stillness, unharmed. "This," Master Takeshi says, walking over to touch a smooth green stalk, "is the secret of true power." The bamboo does not fight the wind. It does not have an ego that says, "I must remain standing straight." It accepts the force. It bows. It yields completely. And because it yields, he says, looking at you with intense, dark eyes, it cannot be broken. The snow can pile heavy on its leaves, weighing it down until it touches the earth. The bamboo waits. It waits patiently until the snow slides off, and then snap it returns to the sky. "In your life," he asks, "are you trying to be the oak or the bamboo? When stress comes, when change comes, do you stiffen your back and say, 'I will not let this affect me'? Do you grit your teeth and fight? You think of all the times you have tried to stay strong by hardening your heart, only to end up exhausted and snapped. That is the oak's way," Takeshi says, shaking his head. "It is the way of exhaustion. The bamboo's way is different. When sadness comes, you bow into it. You let yourself feel it fully. When change comes, you bend with it. You don't resist. You trust that your roots are deep enough to hold you." Resilience, he concludes, patting the bamboo stalk affectionately, is not about how much weight you can carry without moving. It is about how gracefully you can bend and how quickly you can return to your center once the storm has passed. "The storm always passes," he adds, looking up at the gray sky. The bamboo knows this. That is why it dances with the wind instead of fighting it. As if summoned by the rhythm of the rain, a small group of children appears at the edge of the bamboo grove. They are students from the village school in the valley below, their bright yellow raincoats looking like moving flowers against the grey mist. They run toward Master Takeshi with the unreserved delight that only children possess, completely indifferent to the mud splashing on their boots. "Master Takeshi, Master Takeshi," one of them calls out, a young girl with raindrops caught in her eyelashes. "Will you tell us a story?" The teacher said, "We could ask you about the butterfly." You watch with interest as Master Takeshi's demeanor shifts. The intense, coiled energy of the bamboo guardian softens into something warm and grandfatherly. He kneels down in the wet grass so he is eye level with them, ignoring the dampness soaking into his robes. "Ah, the butterfly," he says, his voice taking on a conspiratorial whisper that instantly quiets the group. "That is a very serious story. It is a story about why we must do hard things." He gestures for everyone to gather under the wide, dry eaves of the nearby pavilion. You join them, sitting at the back, feeling a sudden wave of nostalgia for the days when learning was this simple, sitting on the ground, listening to a voice in the rain. Long ago, Takeshi begins, and the children lean in. There was an old man who loved his garden very much. He loved the flowers, the beetles, and especially the caterpillars. One day, he found a cocoon hanging from a twig. He knew that inside, A miracle was happening. A sleeping worm was turning into a flying jewel. The children's eyes are wide, reflecting the grey sky. You realize that Zen stories like this are not just for children, they are Trojan horses for deep wisdom. The old man watched the cocoon every day. Takeshi continues. Finally, a small opening appeared. The butterfly was ready to come out. The old man watched as the creature struggled. It pushed and twisted. It stopped to rest, then pushed again. It looked like terrible work. The butterfly was fighting so hard to squeeze its big body through that tiny hole. Takeshi mimes the struggle with his hands, creating a vivid image of confinement and effort. Hours passed, he says, his voice dropping. The butterfly seemed stuck. It stopped moving. The old man's heart broke. He thought, the poor thing is tired. It is trapped. I must help it. So, Takeshi sighs. He ran to get his smallest, sharpest scissors. With a very gentle snip, he cut the rest of the cocoon open. The butterfly fell out easily. It didn't have to struggle anymore. That was nice of him. A small boy whispers, "It seemed nice." Takeshi corrects gently, but when the butterfly fell out, something was wrong. Its body was swollen and fat. Its wings were small and shriveled, like dried leaves. The old man waited for the wings to open. He waited for the butterfly to fly, but it never flew, the master says sadly. It spent the rest of its short life crawling around the garden, dragging its shriveled wings. It was a cripple. A collective gasp rises from the children. You feel the impact of the story hitting your own understanding. You see, Takeshi explains, looking from the children to you, the old man didn't understand how life works. The struggle is not a mistake. The struggle is the way. When the butterfly squeezes through that tiny hole, he says, clenching his fist tight, the pressure forces the fluid from its body into its wings. That squeezing is what makes the wings big and strong. That struggle is the only way it can learn to fly. By taking away the struggle, the old man took away its flight. The rain drums steadily on the roof of the pavilion, underscoring the gravity of the lesson. Many of you, Takeshi says, turning his gaze directly to you now, come to the temple asking for meditation, for anxiety, because you want to cut the cocoon. You want the anxiety to stop right now. You want the pain to go away easily. You ask me for scissors, but if I gave you scissors, he shakes his head, I would be hurting you. Your anxiety, your fear, your confusion, this is the cocoon. You are squeezing through it. It feels tight. It feels dark. It feels like you are stuck. But this pressure is pushing the wisdom into your wings. It is forcing you to develop strength you didn't know you had. Do not wish for an easy life, he tells the hushed group. Do not ask for someone to cut your cocoon. Trust the struggle. Trust the squeeze. It is making you ready to fly. One of the older children raises her hand thoughtfully. So, when I have to do math problems, and it's really hard, that's me squeezing my wings. Exactly, Master Takeshi beams, delighted. And when you fight with your brother, and you have to learn to say sorry, that is squeezing your wings. And when you are afraid of the dark, but you stay in your bed anyway, that is squeezing your wings. Never be angry at the difficulty, he concludes, standing up as the school bell rings in the valley below. The difficulty is the gym where your spirit gets strong. As the children run back down the hill, splashing in puddles, you remain in the pavilion, watching the bamboo sway. You think of your own struggles differently now. You stop looking for the scissors. You take a deep breath, feeling the tightness of your current life, not as a trap, but as a necessary pressure, a preparation for flight. The rain begins to lighten, transitioning from a heavy downpour to a soft, misty drizzle that clings to your skin like a cool breath. Master Takeshi watches the children disappear into the fog, a soft smile lingering on his face, before turning back to the practical realities of the day. He picks up a small hand hoe and a woven basket. The rain softens the earth, he says, handing you a pair of thick gardening gloves. It is the perfect time to weed. The roots come out easily when the ground is moist. Come, help me tend the inner courtyard. You follow him to a secluded garden tucked behind the meditation hall. It is not a formal rock garden like Master Kenji's, nor a wild bamboo grove. It is a working garden, a patch of dark, rich soil where vegetables and medicinal herbs grow in chaotic abundance. But among the thriving lettuce and sage, you can see the intruders, spiky thistles, fast-growing clover, and invasive vines choking the delicate plants. Many people think Zen meditation is about having a blank mind, Takeshi says, kneeling in the mud without hesitation. They think they must pave over the garden of their mind with concrete so nothing grows. That is dead peace. True practice, he digs his hoe into the soil, is gardening. It is distinguishing between the fruit and the weed. You kneel beside him. The mud is cold and wet, seeping through the knees of your trousers, but you don't mind. There is something honest about being this close to the ground. Here, he points to a thorny weed growing right next to a young tomato plant. This is a weed. In the mind, this is a thought of jealousy or self-hatred. It drinks the water that the tomato needs. It blocks the sundae. So, we must destroy it, you ask, reaching out to rip the weed from the earth. Gently, Takeshi stops your hand. If you rip it out in anger, you leave the roots, and you might damage the tomato. Look, he demonstrates, working his fingers deep into the soil around the weed, loosening the earth patiently until the entire root system slides out intact. He shakes the dirt off the roots and places the weed in the basket. We do not hate the weed, he explains. The weed is just a plant growing in the wrong place. It has energy. It has life. If we compost it, it becomes fertilizer for the tomato. This strikes you as profound. So, my bad thoughts, my anger, my fear, they can become fertilizer. Everything is energy, Takeshi says, moving to the next plant. When you recognize a thought of anger, do not fight it. Do not say, I am bad for having this thought. Just see it as a weed. Pull it up gently with the hand of awareness. Shake off the story and put the raw energy of that emotion into the compost of your heart. The heat of your awareness will break it down, he continues, the rhythm of his work steady and hypnotic. Your anger, when composted, becomes the nutrient of passion. Your fear, when composted, becomes the nutrient of caution and wisdom. Your grief becomes the nutrient of compassion. The most beautiful gardens, he adds, looking at a massive, vibrant pumpkin vine, are grown on a pile of composted weeds. The person who has never struggled with their darkness has no fertilizer for their light. You work together in silence for a long time. Dig, loosen, pull, shake. It becomes a rhythm, a physical mantra. With every weed you pull, you imagine extracting a limiting belief from your own mind. You are not fighting yourself. You are tending yourself. You are making space for the things you want to grow. Patience, kindness, clarity. Master, you ask after the basket is full, does the weeding ever end? Do you ever reach a point where no more weeds grow? Takeshi laughs, a rich, earthy sound. If the weeds stop growing, it means the soil is dead. As long as you are alive, as long as you have a human mind, weeds will grow. The seeds are carried by the wind of the world. You cannot stop the seeds from landing. But, he smiles, wiping a smudge of mud from his cheek. The more you practice, the easier it gets. You catch them when they are small sprouts, before they have deep roots. You don't let them take over the garden. You just check every morning. Ah, a little worry here. Pluck. Ah, a little judgment there. Pluck. It becomes just a simple chore, like brushing your teeth, not a war. He stands up and lifts the heavy basket of weeds. Come, he says, let us take these to the compost pile. Let us turn today's trouble into next year's dinner. As you walk toward the compost bins, you look back at the cleared patch of garden. It looks breathable, open, ready to receive the Sunday. You realize that you don't need to be afraid of your own mind anymore. You are the gardener, and you have good gloves. The rain that began yesterday continues into your final morning, though it has softened to a steady, rhythmic drizzle. You are packing your bag, folding your clothes with the mindfulness you have cultivated over the last few days, when a sharp sound disrupts the tranquility of the morning. It is not the bell, nor the chant, but the distinct, jagged sound of human disagreement. Curiosity draws you from your room toward the communal kitchen, a building usually filled with the peaceful smells of broth and tea. Today, however, the air is thick with tension. You stand at the doorway, observing a scene that feels jarringly out of place in this sanctuary of peace. A steady stream of rainwater is dripping from a darkened beam in the ceiling, splashing onto the pristine wooden floor. Splat, splat, splat. Two monks are standing over the puddle, their voices raised in frustration. One is young and anxious, waving his arms at the ceiling. "We must go up there and fix it now," he insists. "The water will rot the floorboards. It is disrespectful to the temple." The other monk, older and more pragmatic, shakes his head sternly. "It is too slippery on the roof, brother. If we go up now, we risk our lives. We must put a bucket down and wait for the rain to stop." "A bucket is ugly," the younger one argues. "This is the guest kitchen. It looks like negligence, and a dead monk looks like foolishness." The older one retorts. You watch, fascinated. It is the classic human dilemma, the conflict between idealism, how things should be, and realism, how things are. The leak is the problem, but their reaction, the anxiety, the blame, the resistance to the reality of the water is creating a secondary storm inside the kitchen. The peaceful atmosphere of the monastery has evaporated, replaced by the sticky humidity of stress. Suddenly, the back door slides open. Master Kenji enters. He does not rush. He does not look alarmed. He carries a small tray with a few empty ceramic bowls of different sizes. The arguing monks freeze, embarrassed to be caught in discord. They bow quickly, waiting for a reprimand. They expect the master to solve the problem, to tell them who is right and who is wrong. Master Kenji ignores the monks completely. He walks to the center of the room and looks up at the leak. He watches the waterfall. Splat. He does not frown. He does not sigh about the old roof. He simply kneels down and places a large, deep bowl directly under the stream. Pleeing. The sound is surprisingly musical, a clear, bell-like tone that resonates in the room. Then, noticing a second, smaller drip nearby, he places a smaller, shallower cup under it. Tink. He adjusts the position of the first bowl slightly. Pleeing. Tink. Pleeing. Tink. He stands up and steps back, tilting his head as if listening to a symphony. The random, annoying noise of the leak has been transformed into a polyrhythm, a gentle, erratic music that sounds like wind chimes. "Beautiful," Kenji whispers. The tension in the room bursts like a bubble. The young monk blinks, confused. The older monk's shoulders drop. The problem is still there, the roof is still leaking, the floor is still wet, but the suffering has vanished. "We cannot stop the rain," Master Kenji says, turning to the monks with a smile, "and we cannot fix the roof until the sun returns. So, for now, let us enjoy the music of the water." He looks at you, standing in the doorway. "This is your final lesson, my friend. The world will always leak. There will always be unexpected problems. A flat tire, a lost wallet, a cancelled flight, a difficult boss. You can stand under the leak and argue about it, getting wet and angry. Or, he gestures to the bowls. You can place a container of acceptance under it. You can catch the problem with your awareness. And if you are very skillful, you can even turn the noise into music. The leak is not the enemy," he concludes. "It is just water looking for a place to go. Be the bowl. You leave the kitchen with the sound of pliing. Tink following you. It sounds like a song of celebration now. You realize that you are leaving the monastery, not with a promise that your life will be perfect, but with the knowledge that you have the tools to catch whatever falls. The rain stops completely as the afternoon approaches, leaving the mountain washed clean and glittering under a sky of piercing blue. It is time for the circle of departure, a ceremony held in the main hall for those preparing to descend the mountain. You enter the vast space, where the air smells of centuries of sandalwood incense and the beeswax used to polish the floorboards. All the teachers you have met are gathered there, sitting in a wide semicircle. Master Kenji, his hands resting on his knees like gnarled roots. Master Lin, her face crinkled in a perpetual smile. Master Hosin, looking as vast as the night sky. Master Yumi, wiping clay dust from her robes. Master Takeshi, still smelling faintly of wet bamboo. In the center of the room lies a low table with a single object, a long rolled scroll of pristine white rice paper, held down by 2 river stones. Master Hosin speaks first, his voice filling the hall without echoing. You arrived here carrying a scroll that was already written full, he says. Written with the expectations of your parents, the demands of your society, the judgments of your critics, and the fears of your own mind. There was no white space left. That is why you were tired. You were carrying too many words. During your time here, Master Lin adds softly, you have been erasing. You erased the idea that you are a rank. You erased the idea that you must be perfect. You erased the idea that you are the broken reflection in the pond. Master Yumi steps forward and unrolls the scroll on the table. It is completely, beautifully blank. The white paper stretches out like a field of fresh snow waiting for the first footprint. This is your life, she says. It is not a script that was written for you by others. It is an open space. It is deep sleep waiting for a dream. It is a cup waiting for tea. She offers you a brush and a stone inkwell. Before you leave, we ask you to make one mark, not a promise, not a plan, but a symbol of what you are taking with you. You approach the table. Your hand trembles slightly, not from fear, but from the awe of total freedom. You pick up the brush. The bristles are soft and dark with ink. You look at the white expanse. You think of the general's broken branch. You think of the spider's web. You think of the leak in the kitchen. You realize that you don't need to write a whole book. You just need to capture the essence of the space you have found. You breathe in. You lower the brush. With one fluid, unhesitating motion swoosh, you paint a single, imperfect circle. An enso. The circle is not closed perfectly. There is a gap where the brush lifted, a space for the spirit to enter and leave. It represents the broken kiln, the empty cup, the open sky. It represents the wholeness that includes the brokenness. Master Kenji nods, his eyes shining. A circle, he observes. It has no beginning and no end. It contains everything, yet holds nothing. It is the wheel of the potter, the rim of the teacup, the shape of the moon. You have understood, Master Takeshi says, his voice warm with pride. You are not taking home a set of rules. You are taking home this circle of awareness. When you get lost in the city, step back into the circle. When you get angry, breathe into the circle. It is portable, it weighs nothing, but it can hold the weight of the world. Master Hosin rolls the scroll up and ties it with a red silk cord. He hands it to you with both hands. Do not hang this on your wall, he instructs. Unroll it only when you have forgotten who you are. Look at the empty space inside the circle. That is where you live. You take the scroll. It feels light, yet substantial. You realize that this is the ultimate souvenir. Not a thing, but a reminder of no thingness. You bow to the teachers, feeling a wave of gratitude that transcends language. They did not give you anything new. They simply helped you put down what you didn't need to carry. You walk out of the temple gates, the scroll tucked safely in your bag, the river stone warm in your pocket. The mist has returned, swirling around the wooden bridge that connects the temple of the floating mist to the rest of the world. But this time, the mist does not look ominous or confusing. It looks like the canvas of possibility. You step onto the bridge. The wood creaks, softly creak. Creak. A familiar sound now, the sound of transition. As you walk across the suspended path, suspended between the heaven of the mountain and the earth of the valley, you realize that the bridge is not just a physical structure. It is the connection between the silence you found here and the noise you will encounter there. You stop in the middle of the bridge and look back. The temple is disappearing into the clouds. The roofs, the gardens, the bonsai trees are fading into white. Remember, a final whisper seems to float on the wind. The temple is not a place. The temple is a frequency. You turn forward, facing the path home. You are returning to your life, your job, your family, your challenges. But you are not returning empty-handed. You carry the wisdom of Buddhist philosophy, not as a heavy textbook, but as a light in your eyes. You carry the memory of the broken branch that became a graft. You carry the taste of the empty cup. You are ready to sleep now, really sleep. As you walk off the bridge and your feet touch the solid earth of the valley, you feel a profound heaviness in your eyelids. It is a safe, delicious heaviness. The journey is done. The lesson is learned. The knot is untangled. Let your body sink into the mattress of your own bed, which has been waiting for you all this time. Feel the support beneath you. You are safe. You are held. You are part of the great, breathing silence of the universe. This journey of spiritual awakening does not end with waking up. It ends with resting deeply in the truth of who you are. You are the sky. You are the silence. You are the open circle. Drift now. Drift past the bridge. Drift past the mountain. Drift into the velvet dark. Good night.